Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Fellow shareholders, my name is Ivan Anderson, and I've been asked to chair this meeting today. It's my pleasure to welcome you to our shareholders and to wish you a very warm welcome to our third annual general meeting since our company was listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange in 2020. We continue to have this year's AGM in a hybrid format to allow for greater participation of our shareholders, both remotely and in person. I'd therefore like to specially acknowledge our shareholders, invitees, and directors who are participating online as well. Please be advised that the meeting is being recorded. My apologies. So let me introduce you to the members of the Board of Directors who are present in person. Mr. Charles Paradis, our chairman, Ms. Julie Thompson-James, Mr. Alok Jan, Mr. Ian Dare.
Company throughout the COVID-19 pandemic and also throughout the acquisition process which ended last year. We are once again thankful that we are able to gather in this fashion to discuss our company's business. We thank you for the continued support of our customers, shareholders, bondholders, and other stakeholders. We thank you for the leadership of our board of directors and management of our company and that of our newly acquired subsidiary, JIO. We pray for your continuous blessing on the entire Highway 2000 East-West team as we continue to do our best in serving our commuters and each other. We are continuously thankful for Jamaica land we love and for the favors you continue to show us. Lord, while so many things could be better, we acknowledge that we also have a myriad of things to be thankful for. Help us as a people to realize how blessed we are and to do more to protect and preserve our island and culture. We ask that you govern today's meeting and let everything be done to your glory. In your name we pray, amen.
Thank you, Suzanne, for that prayer. I've been advised by the company secretary, Mrs. Brown, that in accordance with the company's articles of association, a quorum is present. The quorum requirement is 3 shareholders present in person or by proxy shall be a quorum. I now declare the annual general meeting open and duly constituted. I've been advised by the company secretary that Mr. Melbourne Link Cook has sent his apologies for absence. Ms. Rochelle Stevenson, audit partner of EY, the company's external auditors, is also present, and a special welcome to her as well. The Jamaica Central Securities Depository, JCSD, our registrar and transfer agent, is also present and is represented by Ms. Annette Puran Headman, Mr. Kareem Patterson, and Mr. Giovanni Lynch. I would now like to introduce the chairman of the board of directors of TGH, Mr. Charles Paradis, who has guided TGH since its inception for more than 20 years, to give his opening remarks.
Thank you, Ivan. Dear shareholders, dear stakeholders, this last year, 2022, saw an end of the 2 years of curfew lockdowns, and no movement days, which characterized the restriction imposed to deal with the COVID-19 pandemic. We wish to thank the teams from both TransJamaican Highway and our newly acquired subsidiary, Jamaican Infrastructure Operator, for keeping the operation open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, despite the impact of this global pandemic. The lifting of the Disaster Risk Management Act measures, along with the new marketing campaign, resulted in a full recovery of our traffic. 2022 saw a total of almost 26 million vehicles getting on the motorway, the highest ever traffic volume. This resulted in a recovery of 13% when compared to the traffic for the year 2021, and 7% above our pre-pandemic traffic of 24 million vehicles in 2019. Our financial structure remains solid even throughout the pandemic. Our commitments to our bondholders continue to be fully provided for, and a third dividend payment of $7 million since our initial public offering on the GSA in March 2020 was paid in October last year. We also continued last year to carry out heavy maintenance works in order to maintain our infrastructure at the highest international standards. Last year also marked 20 years since the incorporation of the company, and it saw us embarking on the largest transformation of our cost structure. This was done through the acquisition of the majority shares in GIO, our operator, at a cost of $16.1 million. By the way, the effect on this acquisition on last year's account is significant and will be further on commented. This acquisition allowed an amendment of the operation and maintenance agreement with GIO, resulting in a reduction of the gross fees payable to GIO from approximately $1.7 million per month in 2022 to approximately $0.7 million per month post-acquisition. This is expected to result in cost savings of approximately $12 million per annum, in higher debt service coverage ratio, and a better protection of the operating margins in case of less favorable traffic conditions. And of course, all this with the same quality of service on the toll road. Looking ahead for this year, 2023, we expect to commence our negotiations concerning our right of first refusal to operate the Phase 1C leg of Highway 2000 East-West. This is the section, the 28-kilometer section, currently under construction between Maypen and Williamsfield. This leg is now expected to be completed by the government of Jamaica through NROC, the National Road Operating and Construction Company, during the second semester of this year. We will also continue to work with the regulatory agencies, NROC and the NWA, to finalize the design and approval for some new interchanges along the motorway. The construction of the first of these interchanges is now expected to commence this year. We will also manage to start soon the construction of a second gas station on lands adjacent to the Portmore Toll Plaza. Our other development projects are always pretty much in our minds, whether they are located around our corridor, elsewhere in Jamaica, or in the Caribbean region. The experience accumulated since our inception in 2001 is undoubtedly a major asset to allow us to look to the future with serenity and with the ambition to help shape a better life for the people of the territories crossed. Once again, we take this opportunity to say thank you to our staff, to our shareholders, and all our other stakeholders who continue to partner with us. Without you, nothing of this would be possible. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chairman, for those opening remarks. With this hybrid format, we want to provide all our shareholders with the opportunity to be able to hear, see, and participate in the proceedings of the meeting. We take the opportunity to remind shareholders who are participating online that, as stated in the notice and explanatory circular provided for this meeting, that questions may be asked by emailing tjhighway@h2k-tjh.com. I'm just repeat, tjhighway@h2k-tjh.com. We will dedicate half an hour for our question and answer session later in the meeting. Please note also that questions that are not answered during the meeting will be responded to subsequently. The notice of the meeting and the form of proxy for the meeting were dispatched to all shareholders on record as at April 23rd, 2023, in accordance with the company's articles of incorporation. If there is no objection, I propose that a notice of the meeting be taken as read. May I have a mover for this resolution? Thank you, Mr. Gordon. May I have a seconder? Christine Johnson. Thank you. All in favor of this resolution, say aye. Aye. This motion is carried. The purpose of this annual general meeting is to seek the approval of shareholders for the respective resolutions outlined in the notice. The resolutions are duly set out in the amended notice of annual general meeting dated the 27th day of April 2023 and duly signed by the company secretary. The first item of ordinary business is the adoption of the audited financial statements for the year ended December the 31st, 2022, together with the reports of the directors and auditors thereon. The second item is to ratify the interim dividend payments and declare them final. The third item is to elect directors. The fourth item is to approve the remuneration of the directors. The fifth item of business is the appointment of the auditors, Ernst & Young, and that the board be allowed to fix the auditor's remuneration. And finally, the sixth item of business is to amend the articles of incorporation by special resolution. Now we will conduct the business of the meeting as set forth in the notice. In order to conduct the business in an orderly meeting, an orderly manner, and give all eligible shareholders an opportunity to participate, we will follow the procedures as mentioned earlier. Questions and comments from the floor should be pertained to the items on the notice, and I ask that persons in attendance wishing to speak to raise their hand, and you'll be provided with the microphone where you will state your name and status as a shareholder for the minutes. In accordance with Article 179 of the Company's Articles of Incorporation, the company is obliged to lay before the meeting the audited financial statements together with the reports of the directors and auditors, which are contained in the company's annual report for the year ending December the 31st, 2022. I will now ask Ms. Rochelle Stevenson from EY to read the auditor's report.
Thank you, sir. Good morning, everyone. I invite you to turn to page 58 of the annual report. I'll be reading the independent auditor's report. Independent auditor's report to the members of TransJamaican Highway Limited. Report on the audit of the consolidated and separate financial statements. Opinion.
We have audited the consolidated financial statements of TransJamaican Highway Limited and its subsidiary, the group, and the separate financial statements of TransJamaican Highway Limited, the company, which comprise the group's and the company's statements of financial position as at December 31, 2022, the statements of comprehensive income, loss income, changes in equity and cash flows for the year then ended, and notes comprising significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. In our opinion, the accompanying consolidated and separate financial statements give a true and fair view of the financial position of the group as at December 31, 2022, and of the consolidated and separate financial performance and cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with International Financial Reporting Standards, IFRS, and the Jamaican Companies Act. Basis for opinion. We conducted our audit in accordance with International Standards on Auditing, ISAs. All responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the consolidated and separate financial statements section of our report. We are independent of the group in accordance with International Ethics Standards Board for Accountants, IESBA, International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, including International Independent Standards, IESBA Code. And we have fulfilled all ethical responsibilities in accordance with the IESBA Code. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. Key audit matters. Key audit matters are those matters that, in our professional judgment, were of most significance in our audit of the consolidated and separate financial statements of the current period. These matters were addressed in the context of our audit of the consolidated separate financial statements as a whole and informing our opinion thereon, and we do not provide a separate opinion on these matters. For each matter below, our description of how our audit addressed the matter is provided in that context. We have fulfilled the responsibilities described in the auditor's responsibilities for the audit of the consolidated and separate financial statements section of our report, including in relation to these matters. Accordingly, our audit included the performance of procedures designed to respond to our assessment of the risks of material misstatement of the consolidated and separate financial statements. The results of our audit procedures, including the procedures performed to address the matters below, provide the basis for our opinion on the accompanying consolidated and separate financial statements. Key audit matters. Deferred tax recoverability of tax losses carried forward. Deferred tax assets. As discussed in Note 8 and Note 20, at December 31, 2022, net deferred tax asset of $19.21 million was recorded on the consolidated statement of financial position in respect of deferred tax asset of $26.58 million and deferred tax liabilities of $7.37 million for the group. Included in the assets is $25.14 million representing deferred tax in respect of tax losses carried forward and available indefinitely in respect of the company. The group has recognized deferred tax assets related to tax losses to the extent that the realization of the related tax benefits through future taxable profits is probable. The estimate of future tax profits is based on the strategic financial plan, which requires management and the board of directors to exercise significant judgments in determining assumptions of forecast of future taxable profits, including expectations for future revenue developments, that's traffic projections, as well as overall macroeconomic conditions. The recognition of deferred tax assets is therefore sensitive to changes in the strategic financial plan as well as to the assumptions made in the estimation of future taxable income. Our audit procedure addressed the key audit matters. As part of our audit procedures, we have obtained an understanding and evaluated the design and implementation of the group's key controls over the recognition and measurement of deferred tax assets. Involved EY specialists to assess the reasonableness of the key economic assumptions embedded in the strategic financial plan. Compared the group's forecasted future taxable income to externally available data and the group's actual historic data and performance, and assess the sensitivity of the outcomes to reasonably possible changes in assumptions, and evaluated the adequacy of the disclosures in the notes regarding the recognition of deferred tax assets based on unused tax losses. The next key audit matter, intangible assets relating to service concession agreements, IFRIC 12, and related impairment assessments. Intangible assets amounted to $212.09 million as of December 31, 2022, and it accounted for 74% of total non-current assets for the group. As disclosed in Note 4, amortization is charged so as to write off the cost of intangible assets over the period of concession using a projection of traffic on the highway over this period. This projection was reassessed in May 2021 by Steer, an external consultant from United Kingdom, and further amended at the end of 2021 reporting period to incorporate the projected impact of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. The projection is based on various estimates and assumptions surrounding, among other things, macroeconomic variables and toll road traffic demand. These assumptions can vary in practice, and the actual outcome depends on such factors as population growth and the development of other sections of the highway. The policy of the Board of Directors and Management is to update the forecast periodically based on the actual traffic. At the end of the reporting period, management performed an impairment assessment on the intangible assets, which were within the scope of IFRIC 12. The recoverability of these assets was verified through a comparison between the carrying amount and the recoverable amount being the higher of the fair value and value in use. How our audit addressed the key audit matter. As part of our audit procedures, we have obtained an understanding and evaluated the design and implementation of the group's internal control over processes related to the intangible assets, verified the reconciliation of the register to the general ledger values, and the completeness and accuracy of the actual traffic data, and recalculated amortization charges for the year. Placed reliance on the external consultant's traffic projection report over the concession period, and therefore assessed the external consultant's qualifications, that is, professional certification, membership in an appropriate professional body, experience, and reputation in the field. We have also assessed the external consultant's objectivity, and with the assistance of EY specialists, evaluated the work performed, including reviewing the assumptions and inputs used in the report in accordance with ISO 620 using the work of an expert. Examine the method adopted by management to identify and assess possible indicators of impairment of intangible assets with the assistance of EY specialists. Re-performed the impairment assessment and confirmed the group's conclusion that intangible assets were not impaired, and assessed the accuracy and completeness of the disclosures presented in the consolidated financial statements. Other information included in the annual report. Other information consists of information included in the group's annual report other than the consolidated and separate financial statements and our auditor's report thereon. Management is responsible for the other information. The group's annual report is expected to be available to us after the date of this auditor's report. Our opinion on the consolidated and separate financial statements does not cover the other information, and we will not express any form of assurance conclusion thereon. In connection with our audit of the consolidated and separate financial statements, our responsibility is to read the other information identified above when it becomes available, and in doing so, consider whether the other information is materially inconsistent with the consolidated and separate financial statements or knowledge obtained in the audit or otherwise appears to be materially misstated. Responsibilities of management and the board of directors for the consolidated and separate financial statements. Management is responsible for the preparation of the consolidated and separate financial statements that give a true and fair view in accordance with IFRS and the Jamaican Companies Act, and for such internal control as management determines is necessary to enable the preparation of the consolidated and separate financial statements that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. In preparing the consolidated and separate financial statements, management is responsible for assessing the group's ability to continue as a going concern, disclosing as applicable matters related to going concern, and using the going concern basis of accounting unless management either intends to liquidate the group or cease operations or has no realistic alternative but to do so. The board of directors is responsible for overseeing the group's financial reporting process. Auditor's responsibility for the audit of the consolidated and separate financial statements. Our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the consolidated and separate financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an auditor's report that includes our opinion. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with ISAs will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. Misstatements can arise from fraud or error and are considered material if, individually or in aggregate, they could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decisions of users taken on the basis of these consolidated and separate financial statements. As part of an audit in accordance with ISAs, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We also identify and assess the risks of material misstatement of the consolidated and separate financial statements, whether due to fraud or error, design and perform audit procedures responsive to those risks, and obtain audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omissions, misrepresentations, or the override of internal control. Obtain an understanding of internal control relevant to the audit in order to design audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the group's internal control. Evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies used and the reasonableness of accounting estimates and related disclosures made by management. Conclude on the appropriateness of management's use of the going concern basis of accounting and, based on the audit evidence obtained, whether a material uncertainty exists related to events or conditions that may cast significant doubt on the group's ability to continue as a going concern. If we conclude that a material uncertainty exists, we are required to draw attention in our auditor's report to the related disclosures in the consolidated and separate financial statements, or if such disclosures are inadequate, to modify our opinion. Our conclusions are based on the audit evidence obtained up to the date of the auditor's report. However, future events or conditions may cause the group to cease to continue as a going concern. Evaluate the overall presentation, structure, content of the consolidated and separate financial statements, including the disclosures, and whether the consolidated and separate financial statements represent the underlying transactions and events in a manner that presents a true and fair view. Obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding the financial information of the entities or business activities within the group to express an opinion on the consolidated and separate financial statements. We are responsible for the direction, supervision, performance of the group audit. We remain solely responsible for our audit opinion. We communicated with the Board of Directors regarding, among other matters, the planned scope and timing of the audit and significant audit findings, including any significant deficiencies in internal controls that we identified during our audit. We also provide the Board of Directors with a statement that we have complied with relevant ethical requirements regarding independence and to communicate with them all relationships and all matters that may reasonably be thought to bear on our independence and where applicable related safeguards. From the matters communicated with the Board of Directors, we determined those matters that were of most significance in the audit of the consolidated and separate financial statements of the current period and are therefore the key audit matters. We describe these matters in our auditor's report unless law or regulation precludes public disclosure about the matter or when, in extremely rare circumstances, we determine that a matter should not be communicated in our report because the adverse consequences of doing so would reasonably be expected to outweigh public interest benefits of such communication. Report on additional matters as required by the Jamaican Companies Act. We have obtained all the information and explanation which, to the best of our knowledge and belief, were necessary for the purpose of our audit. In our opinion, proper accounting records have been maintained so far as appears from our examination of those records, and the consolidated and separate financial statements, which are in agreement therewith, give the information required by the Jamaican Companies Act in the manner required. The engagement partner on the audit resulting in this independent auditor's report is Kian Sudlow, Ernst & Young, Chartered Accountants, Kingston, Jamaica, March 15, 2023. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stevenson. That certainly was a mouthful. So Suzanne and I will present from here on the director's report. The director's report will cover 4 main areas: major changes which have occurred last year, some key figures and highlights of the company, outlook for the future, how do we expect our revenues to grow over the next 13 years to the end of the concession agreement, and a more detailed report on the 2022 audit, and finally questions and answers. So one of the things we did last year, coming out of COVID, was to look at our operations. Not just look at our operations internally, but look at how TransJamaica compared with the best operators throughout the world. And so we retained KPMG to look at that analysis, looking at the company, look at how we benchmark ourselves against the best in the world. So the first area we looked at was the issue of the cost of operations. How do our costs compare with the best companies in the world? So there are some positive areas and some negative areas. In terms of the positive areas, our total costs to collect tolls, let me just say that again. Our total costs to collect tolls per transaction for our ETC customers, meaning our tag customers, was actually 13% lower than the average worldwide company. So the cost to collect, that is per transaction, every time a vehicle goes through the toll plaza, what does it cost us to collect that toll? And so our cost in relation to the ETC vehicle now, we're talking about the vehicles with tags, our costs were actually 13% lower. In terms of manual collections, similarly, we looked at the total cost to collect per transaction through the manual lanes now. Our costs were also lower than international average. So we're actually 10% below where the average international firm is, average international operator is. There are also some negatives. When all of the costs were combined, when all of the costs of the operation were combined, so when we look at the total cost to collect per dollar of revenue generated now, so we look at how much does it cost us to collect tolls for every dollar of revenue that we receive. Everybody following me? So for every dollar that we get, how much of that is the cost to collect tolls? And for that, we were a little bit higher than the international average operating company. So we're about 14% higher than the average international company. And similarly, the total cost to collect tolls per transaction now, again, combining all the costs, the cost to collect toll per transaction was about 16% higher. Everybody following me so far? More details are in your annual report, so you can look at more details there. So not only did we look at the cost to collect tolls, but we also looked at some of the other characteristics. What are the characteristics of the best companies? What are the characteristics of an excellent company? What makes an excellent international toll road operator? So we also looked at those factors. And these are the factors which are common to large international operators. Their technology is modern. The leaders in the toll road business throughout the world all have technology which is within 5 years old. Their employees are productive. They get their money, meaning that there is no leakage. They eschew cash. And I think in Jamaica we can understand that. They don't want to handle cash. And so, similar to Jamaica, we don't want to handle cash either. So the best international companies don't handle cash. They don't handle cash. And they also use data analytics, meaning they use the information which they get, which they collect on a day-to-day basis, to help them to improve their operation. So we'll come back to these a little later. So in relation to our costs, where are our costs coming from? So in looking at our whole operation, where are our costs coming from? And what we found was that 83% of our cost, 83% of our operating expenses were coming from our agreement with GIO. So remember, up to November of last year, we contracted with an operator called GIO to manage the day-to-day operation of the company, the day-to-day toll collection, the day-to-day maintenance of the highway, the day-to-day operation of the company. So 83% of the company's costs were coming from that area. And so the challenge was obviously, how do we reconfigure those costs? And the chairman spoke a little bit earlier about that. So of that 83%, we believe that we could reduce these costs by about 50%. So the chairman mentioned some numbers. Last year, our costs were about 1.7 million US per month from this agreement. And we thought we could reduce those costs to about 0.7 million US per month. And so obviously we then had to figure out, how do we modify this agreement? How do we change this agreement that we have with GIO? And so that is what led us to the acquisition of GIO. This required the agreement not only of, obviously, the TJH, it required the agreement not only of the shareholders of GIO, but last year you saw us going through a process of getting what we call bondholder approval. Because TransJamaica is not only the TJH shareholders and the GIO shareholders, but we also have people who lend us money. And so we have a lot of bondholders in the US who have loaned us money for the operation of the company. And so as part of this agreement, we also had to get their agreement to make this change in the agreements that we had. But fortunately, by the end of the year, 85% of the bondholders agreed to make the change. And so by the end of the year, we acquired GIO for approximately 16.1 million US, as the chairman outlined earlier. So what is the impact of this change? How does this impact our operations? So as you see from our financials, there's a one-off, a one-time charge of approximately $13.6 million impacting our P&L for last year. It's a one-time charge. But going forward, as we expect that our cost will go down by approximately $12 million every year going forward. Everybody follow me? So we're impacted by $13.6 million in 2022, a one-off charge, but we expect that going forward every year, we will save $12 million US. And we expect that that will fall right through to the bottom line of the company. Has that happened? Let's look at a little bit at the financials to May of this year. So this is new information we're giving you now. How has our performance been up to May of this year compared with how our performance has been up to May of last year? And what you'll see is that the total profit after tax for this year is approximately 9.2 million US, and that's just for 5 months. Last year, our profit was $2 million for the same 5 months. So we are more than 4 times as profitable this year as we were last year. But as we discussed, one of the characteristics of excellent companies is that their employees are productive. Remember, we talked about the KPMG study and the things that they found. And so in addition to looking at the question of our cost of operation, we want to also look at how can we make our operations more efficient? How can we make our people more productive? And so that starts with an analysis, a relook at our operations, again, from an internal perspective now. Looking at our common vision. How can we develop a common vision for these two companies that we have now mashed together almost into one? Developing a common vision for this new entity. Looking at what are our strategic priorities and goals for this new entity. Aligning this vision with the goals and objectives of the units within this merged entity. Looking at the projects that we need to do. What are the projects that we need to do that will make our operations more efficient? How do we make sure that things get done? And how do we evaluate when we have been successful? So for this, we're working with PwC at improving the efficiency of the operation. So we're not done. Acquiring GIO was just a start. As we looked at earlier as well, when we talked about what is the characteristics of a worldwide leader, We also looked at the question of their technology. All of these companies have modern technology. And so this year, we are working with a company called Arup. Arup is a world leader in technology, in engineering and technology, to look at what the state of our existing technology is. Where are we now? What are our requirements? What do we need from a new technological system? Looking at areas of enterprise-wide resource planning, and that's just a big name for looking at a system that encompasses the whole operation. You know, it encompasses HR, it encompasses finance, it encompasses our toll collection system, and then ultimately procuring and implementing these new systems. But we've not just decided to wait, obviously, until all this is complete. There's a popular Jamaican saying, you have to walk and chew gum at the same time, right? And so we're doing a number of things. Last year, we released our brand new app, and I trust all our shareholders who use the toll road have our app. Yes, yes. Because our app can do a lot of things. Or not just topping up your account, not just monitoring what transactions have happened, how many times you have gone through the toll plaza, but our app can do a lot more than that. So you can set our app now, people forget, to top up their toll account. So you can set up your app now to automatically top up your toll account. So you can set, okay, and every week I use about $1,000. Let me automatically set my app to top up my account every Monday morning at 7 o'clock, for example. Our app can do that. Or you can create a threshold. You don't want to remember to put $1,000 on the account every Monday. But you want that every time your balance, for example, every time your balance drops below $500, you want the app to automatically top up your account. And yes, our app can do that as well. So we are making a number of modifications, even while we're looking at the larger study of our technology. We're making a number of modifications to our software. We're making a number of modifications to the equipment in our toll plazas. In fact, by the end of this year, all of our manual lanes will also be able to have tagged vehicles pass through them. So no longer will we have a set of lanes dedicated only to manual. We'll have all our lanes now being able to be used by tag customers as well. And this is part of our long-term strategy of moving away from manual collections. Remember, the best toll collectors in the world don't use cash, towards more tag usage. And our goal is to get to about 80% tag usage over the next 5 years. And it seems that the stock market has appreciated the changes that we have been making. I know the last few times you'd have maybe not been as satisfied as you'd have liked to be in terms of our stock price. But yesterday, the stock closed at $2.45. That's up from an IPO price of $1.40. 41. Or up from an IPO price of $1.41 or 1 cent US. Up 75% year to date. I think the market is catching on board as to the things that we're doing. Let me highlight some of the key figures from last year so you can have an understanding of what is happening with our traffic, what is happening with our revenue. From a global perspective, again, this is in your annual report. I won't spend too much time on it. This just identifies some of the main features of our TTH operations, the number of people, approximately 227, the ratings that we have gotten from our customers in our biannual customer survey, the traffic that we have on the highway, our DSC ratio. Anybody know what that is? Thank you. So that's all the accountants in the house. That's our ability to pay debt. What that means is, at any moment in time, we have 2 times the amount of cash available than is required to pay our debt. So we have a significant reserve put aside. Let's look at what has happened with traffic. So I think we all know what happened with traffic as a result of COVID. So with COVID in 2020, our traffic numbers declined by approximately 15% as a result of the lockdowns which occurred. And obviously, that dragged down our revenues as well. But as soon as COVID the restrictions began to be reduced, our traffic began to recover. So by 2021, we are back up 11% over 2020. And by 2022, we were at 25.88 million vehicles on the toll road. And that number is actually higher than the number in 2019. So by 2022, we had fully recovered from the impacts of COVID. And we were actually 7% above the 2019 numbers. But more importantly than traffic, because our focus, while on traffic, is not what we're really focused on. What we're really focused on is revenues. You can maximize traffic by reducing the toll rate. If you were to charge 0 tolls, you would have maximum traffic. But you would have zero revenues. So what we're trying to do is to maximize revenues. And so when we look at our revenue numbers again, in 2020, obviously we have the same impact. The impact of COVID, impact of approximately a 15% decline in our revenues going from 2019 through to 2020. But again, we see the same pattern occurring. By 2021, we're up 16%. And by 2022, we're up 23%. So in 2022, our revenues were 63 million US. In 2019, prior to the pandemic, we were 53 million US. So by 2022, not only had we caught up back with our 2019 revenues, but we were 12 million US higher than our 2019 revenues. So last year, we also we talked about looking at the structure of our operations. We talked about building synergies with the 2 teams. We talked about reviewing our technology. But we also modified how we communicate with our customers, how we market to our customers, how we remind them of the benefits of the highway. And so this year, there are 4 areas that we're focusing on in that marketing campaign. And I'll just flip through some slides. A lot of you have seen the information already. This year, we want to rebrand our operations. We're doing a number of special promotions and benefits. For those of you who use the highway, you'd have seen some of those promotions. We're focusing on the benefits, discounts, discounts, discounts. And we're also building our social media presence. So, as I said, this year, we expect to rebrand the highway based on the analysis which we have done, creating an image of local ownership focused on the company's commitment to satisfy our customers' greatest demands. Everybody would have seen this ad. And this is just a reminder of the benefits of using the highway.
Trying his luck. Now Jason is here, while Paul is here. He's still here, while Paul is here.
Avoid the lag. Get the T-Tag. And don't forget to download the My T-Tag app. Visit TransJamaicanHighway.com.
So basically all this tries to do is to remind people of the value of time. Time is not something you can get back. Time is not something you can pay for and get back. And so this ad is really reminding people about that value and the things that you can do with time that you save. We also, as we said, had a number of special promotions. So this year, we had an opportunity for customers who traveled approximately 44 times on the highway, which is 2 times per day for about 22 days, to win 1 month free of traveling on the toll road. And we had that opportunity for 40 customers this year. We've also introduced a number of interesting new discounts for people. For those of you who have seen the recent ads, would have noticed that all our Class 1 customers with a tag, not just at Portmore, people have been talking about Portmore, but every toll plaza, if you have a tag, you pay no toll increases. This is the first time we have done that. And as I said, this is a part of the shift, moving people away from paying cash to using the electronic tag on the vehicle. And so not only we have that benefit for Class 1 customers, but also for Class 2 customers. Class 2 customers who use their tags will pay less than if they were paying cash. And again, that goes throughout our entire network at all our toll plazas. We've also developed advertising screens at the toll plazas. I think most of you would have seen those advertising screens where we communicate these benefits with our customers directly. So every time you drive through in our toll plazas, you can see what is being offered. You can see the discounts which are being offered. You can see the prices which you can pay by using your tag. Those are now displayed on our boards. And we have also listened to you. I think last year we had a discussion about our social media presence. It wasn't as strong as we'd have liked it to be, but we have significantly improved that now with a number of new features both on Facebook and Instagram. But where are we going? How do these projections compare? So when we did the IPO, we had some projections. We had projections for traffic going from 2020 through to 2036. And a lot of you invested in TransJamaica because of those projections. But with COVID, etc., how do we compare now with those projections? And so this is a graph which looks at what our projections were. So the blue line represents our original projections in 2019, 2020, when we had the IPO. Everybody following me? So we had a slight depression for COVID. And as we have discussed, we've actually recovered that now. And we actually now project that going forward, which is the red line, will actually be higher than our original IPO projections. There are some other projects which the chairman mentioned, which we're still working at. As you know, as part of the concession agreement, TJH has a right of first refusal to own and operate Phase 1C. And as he mentioned, that's a section from Maypen to Williamsfield, the section which is now under construction by NROC. Obviously, we've completed the traffic studies on that section. We believe that the first year revenues will be approximately $7 million US if we are able to get that section of roadway. All the systems which have been put in place for that new section are compatible with our existing section of highway. Right now, NROC has projected that that section of road will be completed by end of August, Stephen? By the end of August. We have exercised our right of first refusal, and we're now waiting for our discussion with NROC in relation to that submission which we have made. In terms of new business opportunities, as we discussed previously, we think there's a significant potential in and around that Burn Lodge area. You know, that area just south of the highway, northeast of Portmore, let me say. You know what I'm talking about? The new Burn Lodge development, where it is projected that approximately 16,000 new houses will be built. The new town, yes, all right. And a number of houses have already been built. A few thousand houses have already been built by Gores in the Phoenix Park area. We think that could add significantly to the traffic on the highway. And as such, again, we're in discussions with NROC about allowing us to add ramps in that area so that those persons can get on and get off the highway. Everybody follow with me? The other area we're looking at, similarly, is an area just outside of Spanish Town. For those of you know, Chadwin Park, not many people play cricket anymore, since our West Indies is, let me not say. But Chadwin Park used to be a big cricket facility just out of Spanish Town. When you go along the Old Harbour Road, there are some number of developments which have been built out there now. Jacaranda, Whitewater, Orchards. Thank you. Somebody who knows about that road and the traffic problems that you have on that road. So as you said, Silverson is a new development being done by NHT on the hill. And all of that traffic now tries to get into that Old Harbour Road roundabout. And the congestion is now a few kilometers on that road. And so the idea of a new ramp at what we call the Heartlands Road is to try and bypass all of that traffic congestion. And again, we're in discussion with NROC about getting approval to put in those new ramps at Heartlands, which would allow us to generate some more revenues from that traffic. We're also looking at new payment options. We continue to review different possibilities. This year, we expect to begin to pilot credit card terminals in the lane and pilot terminals which don't need individuals or doesn't need a customer service rep or a toll collector, an unattended credit card system in the lane. So what we're working with our equipment suppliers to look at is, for example, you drive into a lane, you just tap your card, the barrier opens, and you go through. And we expect that we will begin to pilot that system either late this year or early next year. We're also working with our providers, NCB and Link, in establishing a digital wallet, both from Link perspective and from the central bank digital currency perspective. Hopefully that is something we can also implement in the coming year. The chairman mentioned a new gas station. Rubis has been selected as our preferred bidder, and we're working with Rubis now to finalize the designs for a new gas station facility just adjacent to the Portmore toll plaza. So when you go through the toll plaza, going to Portmore, it will be on the left-hand side. And Rubis is now carrying out its designs and its application to NEPA for the various approvals. If all goes well and we have the approvals, then we expect that construction will start in 2024. Finally, all of this depends on keeping our highway in good condition. Sometimes people see us doing work and I say, why are you doing that? Why are you repaving? The road is better than every other road in Jamaica. Why are you repaving? And it's a preventative action. For those of you who remember the days, if you never wash your car properly, it starts rotting. But just by cleaning out the dirt, you can prevent it from deteriorating the way you have to rehabilitate it. And it is no different from the highway pavement. So we ensure we keep our pavement in tip-top condition. And sometimes when you see us recovering it or relaying it, what we're doing is preventing further deterioration. So last year we did about $300 million of pavement work, and this year those works will continue. Thank you very much. Let me hand over to Suzanne, who will do the 2022 results.
Thank you, Ivan. So Ivan and Ms. Stevenson has made my presentation very, very easy and very short, because they've mentioned a lot of things already. All right, so I am here to present to you the 2022 results, just to give you a little more insight as to some of the key things that would have affected our performance for last year. So from the audited report, you would have seen that we ended the year 2022 with a loss, in a loss position. We had a loss of 7.1 million, and this compared to the profit we had in the previous year of 4 million. So what were the factors affecting that loss? So we had, as we've spoken about the traffic recovery. Mr. Anderson went through his presentation, showed how we've managed throughout the pandemic. But last year our revenue was 65 million, and it was a 23% increase over the previous year of 2021. We also had a 22% increase when we compare to 2019, and 2019 was for us a good comparative year in terms of how we have come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. So I think we can safely say we are at pre-pandemic levels of revenues concerned, which is very good, and we continuously thank our customers for their support before and after and during the pandemic. All right. Next key item was our operating expenses. So operating expenses last year was 39.9 million for the group, and it was 10% over the company's cost for financial year 2021, main items being legal and professional fees. So as we have said throughout the presentation, the acquisition of the subsidiary, JIO, was completed in December of last year. And that process, we needed the assistance of a group. We had a group of consultants, many different persons, bankers, professionals, of lawyers, Thank you, Chairman. And so so our legal cost was 2.2 million over the previous year. In terms of operator's fee, so the pre-acquisition fees were 1.7 million above the fees paid in 2021. And as you would have seen in the audited report, that fee structure was amended post-acquisition. And so in this 2023, you may have also seen in our first quarter reports the impact of that reduction already. Next key item, intangible asset. So intangible assets were 1.4 million above the assets or amortization or let's say depreciation. A lot of persons are more familiar with depreciation of last year. And as we know, the intangible asset or the amortization is just writing off each year a piece of the cost that we paid initially to construct the highway network. And in terms of other costs, our other costs were 0.6 million over the previous year, and this was mainly due to, as you've seen, we've bumped up or ramped up our marketing efforts, and we had a slight increase in our insurance cost. So the next big item, without this item, we would have been in a profit position for 2022, but this was a key item as well. So there was a component of the 16.1 million paid to acquire GIO. Of that amount, 13.9 million represented what in the accounting world is a settlement of or a payout to the previous shareholders to close off that relationship. And so that was a big impact and it's a one-off. We just can't stress enough the importance that it was a one-off thing, only affecting year 2022. In terms of finance costs, so we have mentioned that we not only have shareholders, but we also have bondholders. So last year we paid interest of 14.8 million, and this compares to 15.3 million paid in the previous year. We are also paying each quarter principal repayments to the bondholders, thus paying down the amount we borrowed. In terms of profit after taxation, so for tax last year our total taxation was 2.8 million. Of that amount, 1.3 million was for corporate tax and 1.5 million was for deferred tax. And this compared to 1.3 million of taxation for last year. So those were the main and key elements that affected our loss position for 2022. I'll now just go into the consolidated statement of financial position. So at the end of 2022, we had total assets of 281 million. So total assets for us included the intangible assets or the overall cost of the building the road network, and that stood at 212 million at year end 2022. We also had deferred tax assets of 19.2 million for year end. And included in that 281 million is restricted cash of 49.3 million. And if we remember, our restricted cash is the reserve accounts that we have created, or it's a part of our agreement with the bondholders to put aside money to do specific things. So we have money put aside for maintenance, for debt servicing, and in the event that we are unable to pay our day-to-day, we also have funds. We are grateful that throughout the pandemic, we never had to pull or withdraw any of these funds. In terms of, so we'll move on now to our liabilities. So at year-end 2022, our total liabilities stood at 248 million. And this 248 comprises of the borrowings, and that is the amount that we have outstanding at year end to the bondholders, which is approximately 210 million USD. We also have cumulative redeemable preference shares. These preference shares are dominated in Jamaican dollars and pay interest quarterly. But on our books, as you know, where we account in US dollars, it's approximately 24.9 million US dollars. We also maintain a provision for renewal, and that is to keep on our books the cost, or what we estimate based on the Ms. Stevens has read about our traffic consultants. We have projections from, not only from the consultants, but also including the independent engineer Arup, and those projections assist us in determining what our costs to maintain the network over the next 7 years should be, and so we keep a provision on our books to have those works done. In terms of equity, so for the group, the share capital was and is 27 million. It remains at 27 million. However, our accumulated profit at year end was 13 million, and this was, of course, the net effect of the loss position for 2022 and also the $7 million US dividend paid in October of last year. And while I mentioned the dividend paid, I take this opportunity to ask or to remind our shareholders, if you have not yet signed up for banking mandate or direct banking transfers with the JCSD, who are our registers, I encourage you to go online and fill out the form and submit it so that we can reach you in a more direct way and have you be credited on time, all right? So I told you it would be short. So that's it, unless you have, so we'll now go into question and answers. You have a question, sure. So I'm going to hand over back to Mr. Anderson, but we'll all be here to answer your questions. But thank you so much for your time. Hello, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you, Suzanne. As Suzanne indicated, this is a time for question and answers. I ask that you direct your questions to me and just state your name for the record. Welcome, Mr. Staple.
Mr. Chair, I would like to congratulate you for enabling us as shareholders to be able to be present face-to-face at our meetings. Thank you very much, and may God's blessing continue to be with you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair, it's interesting to see how numbers can play out.
Right.
And it's interesting to see how we can use numbers to tie over a situation and to make people feel happy when they're not really happy. Mr. Chair, turn me to page 8 of your annual report. Page 8. Mr. Chair, in 2021, the revenue was $55.9 million US dollars. $55.9 US dollars. And that $55.9 US dollars cost us $52 million, Mr. Chair. For every dollar of that US revenue, it cost us 93 cents, and we only made 7 cents profit. In 2022, Mr. Chair, we earned revenue, total revenue, total, and when I say total, I mean all the revenues, was $66 million US dollars. And that $66 million US dollars cost us $73 million, which enabled us in 2022 to make a loss of $7.1 million. For every dollar US that we earned in 2022, it cost us $1.11, and we made no profit. What is interesting, Mr. Chair? Incrementally, that is 22 over 21, we earned revenue of 10 million US. And that 10 million US cost us 22 million US. Which means that out of every US dollar we earn incrementally, it cost us $2.10. So we made no profit. Mr. Chair, explain to me why these high costs are being incurred. Why?
Thank you, Mr. Staple. I wasn't able to follow all of the numbers which you highlighted. But as we discussed earlier, a big cost last year, which resulted in the loss of $7 million, was in relation to Note 9, which you see, which is that one-off net loss on the acquisition of the subsidiary. So last year, as we discussed earlier, we acquired GIO for approximately $16.1 million, and that resulted in a one-off cost in our financials of about $13.9 million. Without the $13.9 million loss, we would have made a profit of $6.8 million for last year, which would have been almost twice what it was in 2021. As we also discussed, last year, the transaction for GIO closed in December, and therefore the cost savings that we're seeing. So if Mr. Staple looks in the presentation to where we look at this year's number, we will see the impact of the savings that have now resulted from the acquisition of GIO. So, right. So this year, on the revenues of $30 million, it's on the screen, Mr. Staple, for the first 5 months. For the first 5 months of this year, with revenue of $30 million, we've made $9 million of profit. Last year, with revenues of $25 million, we've made $2 million profit. So the change in revenues from last year to this year is about 20%, from 25 million to 30 million. The change in profitability from last year to this year is about 400%. So we have gone from 2 million last year for the first 5 months to 9.2 million for the first 5 months of this year. So we are 4 times as profitable as we were last year.
Mr. Chair, I respect you and your employees for the hard work you're putting into NROC.
TransJamaican,
I
sorry.
respect it. But we have to face one thing, Mr. Chair, in this country.
Right.
We are an agricultural country, not an industrial country. So all those profits that you are numbering there,
Yes.
I'm sure by the end of the year,
Yes.
you're going to come up with some debits, which are going to wipe out all of those profits, and we're going to have a loss in 2024, in 2023, as we did in 2022.
We can bet on that, Mr. Staple.
I respect your hard work, Mr. Chair.
Next year, when you come to the AGM, I'll remind you.
Yes, remind me, because there's going to be a certain loss number that is going to come up.
As you can see, Mr. Staple, for the first 5 months already, we've
I'm
made
not impressed with that.
9 million of profit, compared to 2 last year. So we are well on our way this year.
That's numbers, Mr. Chair. That's numbers, and I don't believe in that.
Thank you,
As
Mr.
I said, Mr. Chair, we are an agricultural country,
Right.
not an industrial country. And don't care what we do, agriculture is what needs to be saving our lives in this country, not industrial. Turn me to page 18, Mr. Chair.
And I think when Mr. Staples says 18, it's the 18 of the audited financials, not the annual report itself. Go ahead, Mr. Staples.
Page 18. This monthly lump sum fee of 447 million payable in arrears. Explain to us what's happening here.
Oh, okay. So as we discussed earlier, we have revised the contract with GIO. So we have restructured that agreement. So we acquired GIO and we restructured the agreement. So the agreement with GIO has two components. It has a fixed component and a variable component. So when we talk about 0.7 million US per month, remember we're talking about the revised cost of GIO's operation. So we're going from 1.7 million to 0.7. So the 0.7 million has two components. It has a fixed component, which is what Mr. Staples is referring to.
Which is the 447
Which
million.
is the 447. And then there's a variable component, which is based on the traffic volumes through the toll plaza. So last year, the risk to GIO was approximately 3%. So last year, this component of the fee was 3%. This component of the fee is now 5%. So what that means is that GIO's fees are now more dependent on traffic. So those two combined, so when you combine the 447 and you take 5% of our revenues, that is what comes to approximately 0.7 million US per month, as against what it was last year of 1.7 million per month. So it was a similar structure last year with a fixed component and a variable component, but this year, those components are much lower.
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I'm sorry for you. Believe me, I'm sorry for you. Because
you're
going to come to me next year and tell me that because of X and Y, you were not able to make the profitability that you said you would have made. Believe me, I'm sorry for you.
We are very confident, Mr. Staples. We are very confident.
Turn me to page 56, Mr. Chair. Page 56. What accounted for this accounting audit consultant fees moving from $124,000 to $220,000 US? And what caused this management fee of $103,000 US? What caused those two changes?
Sorry, just repeat where you are. On page 56, yes?
Page 56.
Yes.
Administrative expenses.
All right. Go ahead.
Okay. Your accounting, audit, and consultant fees moved from 124 to 220.
All right.
And your management fees was introduced. A new management fee was introduced. And also, your staff costs moved from 785 to $1 million US. What caused it?
All right. So as we explained before, so last year, we had all of this taking place. The chairman reminded us about the legal fees, the accounting fees, the consultancy fees, in order to do the transaction. Because in order to do that transaction, we also had to bring back our auditors into the company to look at the transaction that we were doing and to assess the value of that transaction. That is not something we would normally do. But we did that last year, along with our other consultants, lawyers, etc., to make sure that the transaction that we were doing satisfied all the requirements. The management fees, I think, is a reflection of.
Morning, Mr. Steve. So the management fees, first thing to point out that we, as of December last year, we are reporting on a consolidated basis, and the management fee that is represented here is for the operator. So it's a consolidated position, and that fee related to services provided to the subsidiary. As you look across, you will note that TJH had no management fees in the previous year.
Can you tell us, Mr. Chair?
Mr. Staples, just a minute. So if you look on the same table you're looking at, the first two columns represent what Suzanne was talking about. These are consolidated statements now. So because GIO became a subsidiary of TJH in December, all of the GIO's expenses are now consolidated into TGH. So if you look at the first two columns, that is the group, the two companies. If you look in the next two columns, you'll see TGH by itself. So what you'll see in that same line that you're asking about management fees, there are none. So there are no management fees which are related to TGH by itself. And similarly, if you look at the staff costs, a number of the staff costs from GIO are now consolidated into the TGH costs. So if you look at the last two columns, you'll see TGH by itself. And if you look at the left two columns, you'll see TGH as a group consolidated with GIO. Everybody following me?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
are there any changes or introduction of new line items coming up for 2023?
No, we don't anticipate, Suzanne.
So if you're referring to the management fee, so as I said, that was a cost relating to the subsidiary, and it was predominantly based on their structure at the time. This cost is you'll not see this fee structure going forward for 2023.
So management
It's
fees.
not one time, sorry.
So
but
management
it was related
fees-
to the subsidiary. Sorry.
So the GIO, before it became part of the group, paid what I call management fees to its shareholders for services that the shareholders provided to the company. Everybody follow what I'm getting at? So if the shareholders provide, so the shareholders of GIO previously were Bouygues and Vinci. From time to time, Bouygues and Vinci would provide services to GIO. They would do, plus the CEO. With the acquisition, there are no longer any management fees. So that will not reoccur, as Suzanne has said.
So we will not be shocked with any new changes line items for 2023.
No,
Am I correct?
the only thing you'll be shocked about, Mr. Staple, is the profitability of the company.
So does that mean, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, does that mean that the dividend payments for 2023 will be greater than 2022? Am I correct?
That's a good assumption to make.
No. I want to find out
But
if this is so.
that is a decision that the board will take. As you'd have seen from the guidelines of how we pay dividends. We pay dividends taking into account the funds that we have available, whether it's there for doing phase 1C or whether it's for doing any other projects. But once those are covered, then we expect to maximize the payment of dividends. And so it will be a reasonable assumption to make, but again, that's a decision that the board will take.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
Mr. Chair,
yes.
I'm speaking to chairman of the company who operates you.
Okay.
Are we to expect an increase in our dividend payments for 2023?
The answer was done by Ivan, so no, I
I'm not
agree.
hearing yourself.
The answer was given by Ivan already.
The fact is, Mr. Staple, we expect to be in a better position. So we expect to be in a better position to be able to pay dividends. But as you know, the issue of paying dividends is an issue which the board has to review, has to advise the stock exchange. There's a process that we go through before we pay dividends.
You have to keep in mind that we have also a negotiation to conduct this year, which is the acquisition of phase 1C. So this is the uncertainty going forward before we decide on the dividend.
Mr. Anderson,
Yes, sir.
I'm of the opinion
Yes, sir.
that a lot of these transactions that are taking place are not suiting us as shareholders, are not suiting the country, basically. But they are the beneficiary of other individuals, other subsidiaries, which are outside of Jamaica. Am I correct?
No, you're not, sir. So again, prior to last year, we had external shareholders in GIO. This year, we are a 100% Jamaican company, owned by the shareholders of Jamaica, by shareholders within Jamaica, and our subsidiaries are also owned by the shareholders within Jamaica. And as we discussed earlier, I think your stock price, Mr. Staple, has reflected a lot of the improvements which have been made. Mr. Staple, we just need to give other people a chance to ask questions. So
Yes. I understand.
Right.
I'll soon be finished. Mr.
One
Chair,
more question, Mr. Staple, go ahead.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'm of the firm opinion.
Which page you on?
I'm of the firm opinion
Go ahead.
that you're going to come up with a line item this year, which is going to reduce considerable 2023 profits, and in fact, might make it be a loss in 2023 rather than a gain. I bet you that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Staple. I think we've addressed that already. Other questions? Thank you. Sorry? Okay. All right, so this question is directed at me. You mentioned that an 80% cashless target for 2028, basically. You've communicated some measures you have to track, like converting all lanes to toll and cash, upgraded mobile app and marketing. However, are you protecting customer card data, working on customer education, and what has been the impact like from the near doubling of security costs in the last 3 months related to cash handling? Right, so thanks for that question. There are two questions. I'll deal with the first one first. So in relation to data protection, obviously that's not a much more important issue now that all companies have to deal with. We've done an audit of our data privacy, the data that we collect, how we store it, who has access to it, and we're now implementing new measures to fill any gaps that we identified. We're working with KPMG to implement those, close those gaps. The near doubling of the security costs, yes, has been an increase in cost for us, but it has not affected our operations significantly. We've also done a security audit. So two things. One is the issue of the cost itself, but we all see what is happening with the hold-ups taking place with beryllium, etc. And we're obviously a cash company up to now. So 61% of our transactions are cash still. And so what we've done is to do an audit of all our security all our cash handling and security operation, just to make sure that we're not placed in a situation similar to what we've seen so often recently. Right, working on custom education. So you will see from both our social media presence and the ads that we've been placing on the boards, we've been encouraging customers in two ways. Reminding them about the benefits of using the highway, the savings that they can receive, and also encouraging them to use more tags. So as indicated, our target is to gradually move from where we are. So right now we're at about 39% of our customers that use tags, and our objective is to gradually grow that number over the next 5 years. An additional question here, is it that Link will be an approved payment processor later this year? And with respect to CBDC digital wallet, is it that you want to develop your own digital wallet for your own use? So we're working with Link to see how we can implement Link in the lanes. This is a part of the discussion we had earlier about how we introduce credit card machines into the lanes. But it is not expected currently that we'll be our wallet provider. What is the expected CapEx plans for this year? And what is the likely cost to acquire the rights to operate Phase 1C? Suzanne, I'm going to give you the CapEx.
Okay, so for this year, what we have outlined in our previous agenda, we would have mentioned that we are looking to build or new offices at the Portmore location. So for two key components we have for CapEx this year: the building of the head offices at our Portmore head office, and also the changing out or upgrading of our tolling system, and so that is approximately $3 million for this year.
Right, so Phase 1C, we still, as we indicated, we're still in discussions with NROC. We don't yet have a number that we can release to the public, but as soon as we come to an agreement, then that information will be provided. Will the dividend likely jump? I think that's a question that Mr. Staple asked. Will the dividend likely jump commensurate this year based on significant improvement in profitability and cash flow, or will there be a focus on CapEx and debt reduction for the company to give it more latitude? So the focus, as we have some planned CapEx that are normal parts of our operation. We have the discussion taking place with Phase 1C. But apart from those, obviously we have the ramps as well, which we have discussed. But those are the main items that we are currently considering. Providing they don't change significantly, then we would expect that the dividend payments will increase. Finally, is the proposed amendment to the company's articles a potential precursor to a share buyback program to remove excess shares from the market and improve liquidity? So the proposed amendment, so currently in our articles, it allows us to acquire shares through a tender process. We have requested that in addition to that method, that we be allowed to purchase shares on the market itself. It's not an attempt to remove excess shares from the market, but as you know, last year, up until December, we thought that our shares were significantly undervalued, and if we wanted to put ourselves in a position where if that continued, then we could use some of our excess liquidity to repurchase shares. You have showed great projections for year-to-date, January to May, profitability, which is amazing. Great work to the board and team. First question is to Stephen Edwards, and that is, when the expected concession amendment should be completed for TGH to complete the exercise its option in GIO? Second question to Ivan, what is the current cost for GIO to TGH as a standalone entity today versus last year on a percentage basis? It won't show up on the consolidated numbers, but what about the standalone basis? So let me answer the last question first, and then I'll ask Stephen to answer the first question. So we talked about a little bit about what the last year's numbers were. So last year, GIO's costs were approximately $1.7 million per month, which is about $19, $20 million per year. On the same comparison basis, we expect the revised cost of GIO to be about $8 million per year. So that is why we talk about the savings of about $12 million per year.
So my understanding is that the question is, when would the concession agreement be Could you repeat it just so that I'm clear? I just want to.
When the expected concession amendment should be completed for TGH to complete the exercise its option in GIO?
Right, so as Ivan mentioned earlier, we are in discussions right now. So as soon as we have completed the discussions, we'll be in a position to make a decision. And that decision will be made in very short order after the discussions. Okay?
Good morning. Yes, good morning, at table, Mr. Chair, Mr. Anderson. My name is, and fellow shareholder, good morning to you too. Yeah, my name is Donald Gordon, shareholder, and also the president of Passage Fort CDC from the Portmore, one of the community that is one of our, major, contributor to our business here. So the question that I would like to ask is, what accommodation is being made for the off-peak hour, users on the road? Because I know, well then, in the early morning we have a heavy flow of, every peak hour traffic going. But to accommodate and to capture the off-peak hours, what are we doing? And the next thing I want to say here, we hear the chairman, Mr. Anderson, will have speak of the pandemic, how bad it really does. But we must not see it, as any disappointment, but to see it as opportunities to really, do well. And we want to, to be, and I would also hear the chairman spoke of, some large big ticket items. And, if we can look at some low hanging fruit, in which I have some idea that I would want to share, with the table, because I am not prepared to share it in this space now, but because I don't want anyone to really take away those ideas, because, it is quite possible. But I will follow up and then, have that discussion. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. That's the first question about the off-peak is a very insightful question. And it's an issue that we have actually grappled with recently. And we have had our traffic advisors look at the various toll plazas and give us some advice as to how this could work. In fact, in our last toll review, we actually submitted a proposal to the government, to NROC and the toll regulator, to actually implement off-peak discounts. So in fact, that is part of this year's program going forward. So we expect to commence, we're going to do some pilots in some of the toll plazas to see how this off-peak discounts will work. And what this means is that, let's just pick some time. So let's say you're traveling between, let's say 11 a.m. and 4 p.m., you could pay a lower rate. Or if you're traveling between, let's say, 9 p.m. and 5 a.m., you can pay a lower rate. So we have put together a proposal, we have submitted it, we've gotten it approved, and we will now begin to implement pilots going forward to see how successful it works. Some other questions are there from Jerome? Are there any residential or commercial developments that you're aware of that will come on stream as a secondary development as outlined in the prospectus? So as we discussed, there are a number of residential developments taking place adjacent to the highway. We've talked about a few of them. There's another one we're also looking at further down by Freetown, by the Freetown exit. We're looking at where Longville development, allowing the Longville Park development to come onto the highway going west. Right now you can only use that exit. You can only exit going west, but we're allowing you to get onto the highway going west. And that's part of the improvements that we hope to be able to make this year as well. Do you agree that there's an opportunity to sell the valuable traffic data that you collect? And if so, is this being explored? It's not an issue that we're looking at currently. Obviously, some of the information that we have is personal data, and that information obviously cannot be shared. What's the timeline for future legs of the highway to be constructed? We talked about the legs currently under construction, and that will be the main new leg of the highway which is currently being built. Any other questions?
Yes, good morning.
Morning, sir.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, I can.
Good morning, Board of Directors. Good morning, fellow shareholders. My name is Darren Dixon. I'm a shareholder also. Thank you for accommodating me and my lovely wife, Dawn. I was looking at your screen earlier. You said you had at least over 25 million cars
Yes.
passing through the toll
Yes.
last year. When I go through the toll, I pass through at least 3 toll plazas.
Yes.
So I'm looking at $3,000. I'm going to say $1,000 per toll, 2022. I would be, give or take, correct? So what I'm looking at, if I divide 25 million by 12 months, I'd probably get 2 million cars. I would
Yes.
also be correct.
Yes.
If I then multiply, I don't want to shout. Oh, you hearing me clearly?
Yes, we're hearing you.
If I don't want to, if I look at 2 million cars,
Yes.
and I say $3,000 per car,
Yes.
I'd probably end up with, let me just touch my little phone here for a second, approximately 6 billion Jamaican. If I divide that by, let's say, 155, which is...
Sorry, just to make sure we're getting the numbers right. 25 million is per year, right? And you're talking about
you have 25 million cars.
per year.
I'm going by month now. So
you divide by
12
2
into
million,
25
right?
is 2 million
That's
cars
right,
per
that's right,
month.
that's right.
I say $3,000 per car
Right.
through the toll plaza per
Yes.
month. If I multiply 2 million by 3,000 Jamaican dollars, I get 6 billion.
Right.
Everybody following me? If I divide that 6 billion by 155, which is the exchange rate, I would end up with 38.7 million US dollars per month. I'm looking forward to making a lot. The microphone is going and going and coming. I'm looking to make
No, I think your calculation was a little off, Mr. Brown. The $3,000.
Dixon.
Sorry, Mr. Dixon.
Yes,
My
go ahead.
apologies.
Correct
The
me.
$3,000 is Jamaican.
Yeah, man, Jamaican
So you
dollars,
can't
right?
divide it by 150 again.
I can't divide it by...
Because those are, well, so you're going back to US now.
Yeah, we're talking US dollars in here. I don't hear a Jamaican figure to date, so I'm just going by US dollars. So back out to our calculators. You want me to start again?
Let me just get my calculator. Thank you, Mr.
I don't want anybody to get misled or, miscalculated.
Right.
I'll go again. 25 million cars,
Right,
2022.
right,
Divide it by 12 months,
Right.
we get 2 million cars.
right.
I'm estimating 3,000 Jamaican dollars per car through the toll last year. $3,000 Jamaican times 2 million cars per month, I get 6 billion Jamaican dollars. If I divide that now by the exchange rate of 155, I get 39 million US dollars per month that this company, which I'm a shareholder, along with my lovely wife again, I'm looking forward to making a lot of money. Because you said that the share to a value of $2.40 Jamaican. I want to get that right. It's $2.40 Jamaican
Yes.
for the share right now?
Yes.
I am surprised it's not 240 because
Right.
I am baffled, and I'm making up a word now, baffled, as to why 39 million US dollars per month potential is only valid at $2.40, Mr. Chairman.
Right, and I think one of the things which you have overstated is you have reflected on the $3,000 based on what you pay.
Yeah, man.
Going through 3 plazas.
Right.
The
$1,000 per plaza.
Right.
All
But
right.
the average motorist
Uh-huh.
doesn't go through 3 plazas a day.
Uh-huh.
And he doesn't pay $3,000.
Uh-huh.
Right. So the average motorist, let's just take a Portmore motorist, for
Right.
example,
Okay.
who is paying $320 or $600 if he does it both ways.
Right.
That would be 1/5 of the $3,000 that you're talking about.
That will be, follow, let me, hold on. 320 plus 320 is 640.
Right.
I'm saying 3,000.
Right.
So you're saying $600,
Right.
roughly. So if I look at 150, 155, it is 38 million US dollar.
1/5 of 38.
Yeah,
Huh?
5 into 38, is still 5,735,
Okay.
That's 7 million US dollars. That's
Okay.
8 million, I think. 8 million US dollars.
Okay.
I'm still looking forward to making a lot of money.
Right. So, I mean, not to say we're going to make, Mr. Staples, sorry, not to say we're going to make 8 million US a month, but
Right.
if we make 7 million a month, then it will be 84 million for the year, not 300. And 84 would compare with 65, which is what we made last year.
That is why I went per month, because I want everybody in the room
Right,
to go by
right,
per
right,
month.
right.
I don't want to go to per day. That'll be a little taxi.
So,
Right.
so if we make 7 million US per month,
Right.
then we would make 84 million per annum,
Right.
which is consistent or in the ballpark of the 65 million that we made last year.
Exactly.
Right.
So you're
Okay.
making a whopping profit.
So we expect to do better. As we pointed out to Mr. Staple,
Uh-huh.
for the first 5 months of this year,
Yes.
we have revenues of
9 point something. Up from
Profitability.
2.4, right. So
Profitability.
so that's 4 times as you had mentioned
right,
on your
right.
slide.
Now I'm talking about the revenues. So revenues for the first 5 months is 30 million, which is about 6 million per month.
You almost reach 8.
So if you
You're following me now, Mr. Chairman?
So if you take that number,
Right.
if you take the 30 million that we've made for the 5 months,
Right.
and you extend it, extrapolate it to 12
Over
months,
the next
then
7 months,
we'll be
yes.
about 72 million, right?
You're following me wonderful,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Chairman.
Yes,
So
yes.
$2.40 don't make sense.
All right. So you need to buy
Makes
some
sense?
more shares, Mr. Dixon.
No, the value of the product must go up. Because
Yes,
you
yes.
have cars, bus, truck, bicycle, donkey cart. The highway is a magnificent profitability.
Thank you, Mr.
Which is
Dixon.
why we jumped into it. So I'm expecting for 2023, $240 per share. I hope the laughter is because you all agree. Exactly. I think that's my question. Thank you then.
Thank you, Mr. Dixon. I think we've kind of outlined what the projections would likely be based on where we are right now. And we provide you with some up-to-date information, which is the first 5 months of the year and where we are.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And thanks again for giving us this opportunity to have a face-to-face meeting. I agree with Mr. Staple, 100%, where that is concerned. My question is short and simple, and it's a follow-up of a question or something that was proposed at last year's meeting.
Right.
Someone had asked the question, could we get the payout of dividends on a quarterly basis? Is that still being looked into, sir? And that's my simple, short question.
Yeah, it's something, as we discussed last year, that we want to do. As Suzanne mentioned, we have an issue because we have so many shareholders. If it was automatic, if we could lodge directly to the bank accounts, as we are encouraging our shareholders to do, providing the information to JCSD, then it makes it a lot simpler. When we have so many shareholders and so many of them are not automatic deposits to their bank accounts, we then have a lot of checks which come back through the system, which we then have to clear through and reissue. So it just makes the process a lot more difficult. But again, it's something that we have committed ourselves to do, to improving first past the 1 year and seeing if we can do it twice a year. I think this year we have the issues which we discussed in terms of the GIO acquisition, the phase 1C transaction, which has obviously come up in the middle of the dividend. Had we not had the phase 1C transaction to deal with now, then we would have been in a position to make a further dividend payment earlier, or to recommend to the board a further dividend payment earlier. But we expect that by next year, we will have more frequent dividend payments. So let me ask the last question first. For the interchange lanes, you spoke to the engineering process starting. What's an expected earning amount expected from the development? And what the preliminary cost to develop so far? So we're looking at three, as we discussed earlier, three potential interchange points. One at Dunby Holding Road, which is the one we looked at by Burn Lodge. Everybody remember that map I showed? We're looking at the one by Heartlands, and we're looking at the one by Freetown. So those three interchanges, we're currently thinking that those will cost us less than $10 million. Once we decide to go ahead, and once we complete and get the agreement of NROC, then we expect that these will have an impact, a positive impact. We don't expect them to be money spinners. We don't expect there's going to be a lot of revenues, but we expect that there'll be a positive impact on the revenue flows of TGH from the new interchanges. Also, do you see plans to expand the company into the rest of Latin America at some point in the future, especially with the GIO acquisition? Well, definitely. I mean, part of what we're doing, as we talked about earlier, was benchmarking ourselves with the best companies in the world. And we expect to get there over the next few months as we make the changes to our operation. And once we're in that position, we expect that we'll be able to compete anywhere with anyone.
Everyone. Good morning.
Morning.
Good afternoon, sorry. All right, my question is, why can't we have on the highways like a rest stop? Because some of the highways are longer than some. Mm. Like when you have, like in Canada, they have the truck stop and so on. They can get a drink, or you top up yourself in drink or lunch, whatever it may be. So why can't we implement that here? That's my question.
Okay, right. So currently, as you know, we have introduced the new gas station at Old Harbour, which provides a rest stop. If we're successful in our discussions with NROC for the phase 1C section, we propose to introduce a new rest stop in that toll plaza location as well, which will provide those facilities.
Okay, thank you. That's my question.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Last year when I attended the AGM,
yes,
I was not as pleased as this year because I'm very delighted about the performance of the stock market and specifically the stock of TJH. And I want to just congratulate the management for the performance in terms of the stock price.
Thank you, and thank you on behalf of the board as well.
Thank you very much. As management deliberates to build a business, do you see any benefits or synergies to be generated by a possible acquisition of the North-South Highway or the concession agreement, making highway ownership in Jamaica a Jamaicanized arrangement? That's my question.
I got this question yesterday from the board. obviously, there are benefits, and we have learned a lot from the operation. We have had some discussions with the North-South in the past about possibilities. Nothing has yet concretized, but obviously, if there's an opportunity, it's something that we would definitely look at.
Afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good
Afternoon,
afternoon,
sir.
everybody. Howard Wolf, shareholder. Earlier you talked about the gas station.
Yes.
Is it going to be owned and operated by TransJamaica?
Go ahead. You finish?
Yeah.
No, so what we're proposing to do is to provide Rubis with the lands.
Okay.
They will design, build, and operate the facility, and we will be paid based on how well that business is done. We will be paid based on how much fuel they sell and how much business they do through their convenience stores. So that's the current structure that we're proposing for that agreement.
It's a percentage?
Yes.
Okay. The next question is, as it relates to talk earlier of repurchasing shares.
Yes.
Given that there's some movement in the stock price,
yes.
Is the management team still minded to do repurchasing? And if so, what period are we talking about?
I think that's an issue that the board will consider from time to time. I don't think there's any imminent decision to repurchase shares, but it's an issue that we'll continue to monitor as we continue to monitor the stock price over the next few months. But there's no imminent decision now to purchase shares.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. Congratulations to the board and chairman and all fellow shareholders. I'm Horace Williams. Just some simple, quick questions. What's the link between TJH and NROC? That's one. Two, the link between TJH and BOI. And what is the link between I had TJH and what you have explained what it is, but those two. And then as we move forward, I know you have the process of looking at 1C, Maypen Williams Field, and then is there any thinking about the Alice link?
All right. So TransJamaica Highway has an agreement with NROC. So NROC represents the government of Jamaica, and TransJamaica has what we call a concession agreement. So that concession agreement governs how the highway will be run, how the highway will be designed, built, and operated over the 35 years. So there's an agreement with NROC. And obviously that agreement continues and will continue until the end of the concession agreement. Okay. In relation to Bouygues, as we pointed out earlier, Bouygues were the original developers of the highway back in 2001. But since then, as you know, in 2019, the end of 2019, the government of Jamaica repurchased all the shares which were then owned by Bouygues and a number of other shareholders and offered those shares to the public. So the shares that we now have are the shares that were previously owned by those shareholders. There was one remnant of that agreement, which we talked about as well, was in relation to GIO. So as we said, we have an agreement with GIO to operate the highway. And up until December of last year, GIO was owned by Bouygues and Vinci. As part of the acquisition of GIO, we purchased all the shares of Vinci in GIO, and we purchased an option, the right to acquire all the shares of Bouygues in GIO. So that's the only remnant of Bouygues in the concession agreement now.
Okay.
Well,
I think you've actually mentioned where we are now and where we're going in terms of Williams Field leg.
Right.
I'd ask about Yara. Well, that's not
right.
the
So
road.
that is not part of, that's not a toll road, as you know. I mean, sometimes they get mixed up. But the road from Harborview to Port Antonio is not a toll road and will not be tolled. So it's not part of our involvement. We don't have any involvement in it.
Thank you.
Was that the last question?
Sorry, Eva, we have 2 questions from our YouTubers. Lithium Lily, she was asking about the frequency of the dividend payment, if it will remain annual, and I think Mr. Anderson responded to that already, that we'll make best efforts going forward next year to do at least twice per year. And then this question is directed to you, Ivan. Is there any legal stumbling block that prevents the group from earning extra revenue from electronic billboard advertisements at the toll plazas?
So the issue of advertising on the toll road is an issue which has come up recently. The local Town and Country Planning Act governs billboards throughout the country and how those are handled. We believe that there are some exemptions for the toll road, and so those are discussions we're having with the municipality to try and clarify whether we can do advertising on the highway without their approval. So currently, in order to do advertising on the highway, even though we may provide an advertiser with the space to do the advertising, he still has to get the approval of the municipal authority to do the advertising. For our boards, right now we are focused on communicating with our customers and getting the message to customers, when there is smoke, when there is traffic congestion. So that is where we are focused now in terms of our video boards that we have put up. We're not doing commercial advertising on those video boards at this point in time. All right, so if there are no further questions, we ask that the audited financial statements for the year ended December 31, 2022, and the report of the directors and auditors be and are hereby adopted. May I have a mover for this resolution? Mr. Staple, thank you. Mr. Gordon, thank you. All in favor of the resolution? Thank you. The motion is carried. We'll now move on to the second item of business, which is to ratify the interim dividends. That the interim dividends of US $7 million, or US $56, US $0.56 per 1,000 shares, paid on October 25th, 2022 for the year, be and are hereby ratified and declared as final, and that no further dividend be paid in respect of the year under review. May I have a mover? Thank you, Mr. Rose. Seconded? Thank you, Mr. Bloomfield. All in favor of this resolution? The motion is carried. Resolution number 3. We'll take each of these resolutions as a separate item. That the retiring director, Mr. Charles Pardy, be and is hereby re-elected as a director of the company. May I have a mover? Mr. Rose. May I have a seconder? Mr. Williams. All in favor of the resolution? Thank you. The motion is carried. That the retiring director, Mr. Ian Deere, be and is hereby elected as a director of the company. May I have a mover? Mr. Staple, thank you. Mr. Rose, seconded. All in favor of this resolution? Thank you. The motion is carried. That the retiring director, Mr. Alok Jan, be and is hereby elected as a director of the company. May I have a mover? Mr. Rose, seconded. Mr. Wolf, thank you. All in favor of the resolution? Motion is carried. That Mr. Stephen Gooden be and is hereby elected as a director of the company. May I have a mover? Thank you, Mr. Rose. Thank you. All in favor of the resolution? The motion is carried. That Mr. Patrick Hilton be and is hereby elected as a director of the company. May I have a mover? Thank you, Mr. Staple. Mr. Rose, seconded. All in favor of the resolution? Motion is carried. Finally, that Mr. Nicholas Scott be and is hereby elected as a director of the company. May I have a mover? Mr. Rose. Mr. Wright, thank you, seconded. All in favor of the resolution? The motion is carried. The fourth resolution relates to the remuneration of directors, that the amount included in the audited accounts of the company for the year ended December 31st, 2022, as remuneration for their services as directors, be and is hereby approved. May I have a mover? Mr. Rose. Mr. Bloomfield, thank you. All in favor of the resolution, of this resolution? The motion is carried. Resolution number 5, the appointment of our auditors, that Ernst & Young, Chartered Accountants, having agreed to continue in office as auditors, be and are hereby appointed auditors of the company to hold office until the next annual general meeting at a remuneration to be agreed by the directors of the company. May I have a mover? Thank you, Mr. Rose. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. All in favor of this resolution? Motion is carried. And the sixth and final item of business, the following resolutions were explained in the letter from the chairman to the shareholders, contained in the notice to the shareholders of the AGM, that the articles of incorporation of the company be and are hereby amended as follows. A, by deleting Article 65 and replacing same with the following article. New 65, where the shares to be repurchased are listed on any stock exchange, that the repurchase may be effected by open market purchases or by way of tenders to all holders of such shares, or in such other manner as holders may approve by an ordinary resolution. And the second part of that modification is to by deleting Article 106 and deleting from the Article 114 the following words in parentheses. Exclusive of directors, if any, who are bound to retire under Article 106. May I have a mover? Thank you, Mr. Wolf. Thank you, Mr. Rose, seconded. All in favor of this resolution? The motion is carried. I will now welcome any general questions and comments that anybody may have, who missed it earlier. Don't seem like there are any more questions. Yes, please. We have one more question.
Good afternoon. You had said earlier something about a semester. I wanted you to clarify what you meant by that.
A semester?
Yes.
A 6-month period. Sorry.
Okay.
Yes, good afternoon.
Afternoon again, sir.
Yes, I'm Devon Wright.
Thank you,
I
Mr.
came
Wright.
in extremely late. I'm just trying to ascertain from you if the projections for the current leg in August, is it still underway or is there going to be any hold-up?
That's really a question to Stephen, but Stephen is confirming that they are still working towards completing by the end of August.
So it will be completed by the end of August.
Mm.
That's my birth month, actually.
All right, if there are no further questions, this ends the formal part of our meeting, which I now declare. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
I heard a little bit about the digital side, that the tap and go.
Yes.
You said there would be no tellers, you said?
Yes.
But to my knowledge of digital things, I'm really having a lot of problems sometimes. So I realized that machines would always have so forth. So there will be someone else there in case of issues like that.
All right, so that's an important question. So,
Are we just gonna...
thank you. That's a very important question. So, what we've been looking at is in the pilot phase, what we propose to do is to have these unattended machines placed in the manual lane. So if you drive up in a manual lane, you can tap and go. If you tap, and I know some of us, when you tap a card, sometimes you tap and tap and tap and it don't work. If you tap and it doesn't work, then you have an attendant to give the card to. And so that's how we're looking at implementing it, at least in the pilot stage, till we understand how tap and go technology works and the reliability of the tap and go technology.
And also with the app that you said, tag, right? Tag.
My T-Tag. It's called My T-Tag.
My T-Tag.
You don't sound like you have the app.
No, I do not have the app. I do not have the app as yet because I don't really do the driving, you know?
Okay.
But you said the app is mainly to actually do what exactly again?
So the My T-Tag app is an app which we provide to all our customers. It's free. You download it on Play Store or on iOS. And you can top up your account. So if you have a tag on your account, you can top it up. You can monitor the trips that you have done through the toll plaza. And as I mentioned, you can set it to automatically top up, both in terms of a recurring amount or based on certain thresholds. And it can do a number of other features as well. It's obviously linked to your credit card or your debit card accounts.
Oh, so I can use the app to actually pay for the service to actually go through on the toll, right?
Yeah, man. So you get a tag, you put it on your vehicle, and you put money on the vehicle on the tag through the app. So you can actually put money on the tag at the toll plaza itself as well. So when you're driving through, you can actually give the toll collector funds, and she will add that to your account. But the other way to do it, which is what we're encouraging people to do, is use the app. So you can then add money to that account using the app.
Oh, so it would be more faster than the tag.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So when you have the tag on your vehicle, then you don't have to tap. You just drive straight through.
Okay then. With that app though, can I also use it? For example, if the app would be with the company, would it be able to actually work with Ruby's, because you said Ruby's going to be apart soon. So would I can manage to use the app with the previous?
No. So the app is only for the highway operation, just for the tag.
My name is Donald Gordon again.
Thank
Mr.
you, Mr.
Anderson.
Gordon. Final question from you.
Right, that's the final question, and it's a very important one. And, I'm just asking that, my board up there revisit the idea of the gas station that's supposed to, be coming to Portmore, and the TransJamaican is just, to call it mere a percentage of operation when it do up and running.
Mm-hmm.
But I think TransJamaica should be, own that gas station 100%, because as you know, Portmore, that leg is very much a cash cow. Even if we have to own just that one, I think you need to revisit that idea, because it will be beneficial to we, the shareholders. It is important. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gordon. What we did, we invited operators to provide tenders for the operation of this facility. And one of the things that we're always careful about as a company is ensuring that we do things that we understand. Gas station business is a unique operation in itself. And so we are very aware, not just of gas station business, but doing things which are outside of our core understanding. And so we tend to focus on those things that we understand operating highways, we understand maintaining highways, we understand that side of the business, and let people who understand the gas station business run the gas station business. So that's the perspective that we have taken. All right, thanks very much. This ends the formal part of our meeting, which I now declare closed. And ladies and gentlemen, as we formally close the section, thank you all for your attendance and interest, and we look forward to your continued support in the coming year. Please continue to keep safe, and we look forward to welcoming you to our AGM next year, especially Mr. Staple, to talk about profitability. And we'd like to thank those of you who are here to share with us some light refreshments, and to feel free to talk to any of our team members, our directors, or our subsidiary. Thank you very much for coming.